Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to start off by reading a little bit here from this article in the New York Times about the revealing of a new report about the origins of COVID-19. It says, lab leak most likely caused pandemic, Energy Department says. The conclusion, which was made with, quote, low confidence, came as America's intelligence agencies remain divided over the origins of the coronavirus. New intelligence has prompted the Energy Department to conclude that an accidental laboratory leak in China most likely caused the coronavirus pandemic, though U.S. spy agencies remain divided over the origins of the virus, American officials said on Sunday. The conclusion was a change from the department's earlier position that it was undecided on how the virus emerged. I'm going to put the link to the article in the description below. You can read more of it. But this is certainly a very notable story for a lot of reasons. I remember in the early days of the pandemic, it was considered off limits to talk about the possibility of COVID being caused by a laboratory leak. That idea gained more and more acceptance as time went on, to the point where the US government, I think under Biden, I'm not sure, and possibly under Trump too, ordered investigations into whether the COVID pandemic started from a lab leak. And I remember thinking at the time, reading about those investigations that were being ordered, that the findings, if the findings were to show that it was something man-made, those findings would be so explosive that they would only be released as a diplomatic tool, as a means of putting diplomatic pressure on China. Sure enough, now at this moment, with so much diplomatic pressure going on over the Russia-Ukraine war and China's possible role in it, China attempting to broker a peace deal, and endless talk over a possible war between China, Taiwan, and the United States, this report comes out. And it's a very hedged report. It's made with low confidence, and the prominent newspapers that are reporting this are being sure to explain that this opinion is by no means unanimous, that intelligence agencies are on both sides. So I think it's clear that the decision was made to use this investigation to add to the diplomatic pressures being put on China. You know, something as big as the origins of COVID and whether or not Chinese government was at least in some way responsible for it, that is such a big explosive topic to touch that it really would only be approached if it was considered useful in global politics and diplomacy. For example, you're not going to see investigations like this into anything possibly linked to a U.S. ally, a U.S. friend. Countries that certainly are involved in things that aren't widely known to the public, certainly have some history of possible missteps with things, but they're friends, they're allies, and friends and allies don't go trying to expose and possibly embarrass and hurt the reputation of each other. So this was certainly a very explosive topic to be looking into, and if things have been going better between the United States and China, I don't believe that this report would have come out. As things are now, I think this was a useful report to allow out to, again, put some diplomatic pressures on China. Now, I've always been of the opinion from the beginning that while, of course, a lab leak was possible, it was the less likely of scenarios. The more likely being the original story, just an accidental transmission from animals to humans due to unsafe and unsanitary handling of animals. That is a story as old as civilization itself. It has happened who knows how many thousands of times over the course of human history. I see no reason to doubt that that is the most likely cause of this current coronavirus pandemic. But of course, there is evidence pointing towards the lab leak theory, and you can't rule that out. But I have a feeling we're never really going to know. If you think I'm wrong about that, please let me know why. But I get the impression that this is always going to be in that gray area. I don't think China will ever officially acknowledge it. I don't think any countries who want good relations with China or are friends of China will ever acknowledge such a thing. And I don't think that researchers in other countries will ever really be able to get to the bottom of it on their own. So in my opinion, this is going to be just one of those things that you just don't know. Our relationship with the past is a tricky thing. The way time goes, it only goes forward, doesn't go backwards, and it only goes in a straight line. So history is always a challenge. Even recent history, of course, ancient history, any kind of history is a challenge because you're dealing with something that you can't revisit by definition because of how time works. So that question of what really happened, what is truth when talking about past events, is always going to be a bit of a mystery, always going to be subject to debate because the way the perception of the past influences the present and the future. Almost every country in the world has its own historical topics that are very sensitive or even considered off limits due to how they reflect on that country and how they might stress certain tensions within that country or between that country and its neighbors or the rest of the global community. So I think this is going to always be one of those topics, and because of that, we're never really going to know with full confidence what happened. But the research of this topic is very useful as a diplomatic tool for countries that are engaging with China and seeking some kind of advantage. As Christians, there are just so many things in the world that we have no control over. We don't have the ability to prevent, and sometimes not even the ability to avoid. Just think how many people died of COVID before there were good known treatments, or people who lived in countries with healthcare systems that couldn't attend to everybody properly. There's just so many things that happen that are out of our control, out of our ability to predict, and very often out of our ability to even get out of the way of. Thankfully now, so many of the dangers of this pandemic are past. We have treatments and vaccines, and healthcare systems are not being overrun in most parts of the world. And so I can say with great relief, this is something that we all looked forward to 3 years ago when this started. The worst is behind us. And when we were in it, when it was starting especially, man, it was hard to foresee a hopeful future where this was behind us. But here we are, and thankfully so much of the worst of this is behind us. I want to read a bit from the Gospel of John, chapter 16. Just one verse that really comes to mind when talking about these trying things in the world that we are subject to. Jesus is telling his disciples, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Of course, Jesus went on from that talk with his disciples to suffer and die for the world. So Jesus' way of overcoming is by doing what's right and spreading the kingdom of God. And that can be a tough thing to follow, not because it's hard to do, but because of the way it goes against, our instincts towards self-preservation and reaching for the goals that the world tells us are important. But putting aside those things of the world, we can have peace in Jesus, and that can become the victory of any Christian, regardless of the circumstances that that person faces. As Jesus says so victoriously here, I have overcome the world, even though he is on the doorstep of going to his death, because he knows that it is through his obedience to the Father that this overcoming takes place. And it's something bigger than the individual. It's something that God is ultimately in charge of. And so we can have that peace even in circumstances that put our very lives in danger. Well, thanks for watching. If you have anything to say, anything to add to this, please do leave a comment in the comment section below. And I hope to talk to you some other time. Bye for now.